everyone. Welcome to the Healing Lounge. Today, we have a special guest. We have Niki Sligar. She is the owner of Shoestring Promotions and the curator of Spirit of Vegas. Niki, welcome to the Healing Lounge. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for making time to be here on the show. We're really excited to dive into what it is that you do and who you are. Please feel free to let our audience know who is Niki Sligar.
I am a native of Vegas. We have 5 generations here. I've spent the majority of my life working in the music industry and doing promotions and marketing, and started evolving into my spiritual roots probably about 30 years ago. And it's been a slow, gradual process that has spanned over multiple continents, actually. And today I'm deeply rooted in my spiritual beliefs and love to connect with community. I'm a community builder, I'm a community connector, and finding ways of doing that and bringing people together has become something that I'm extremely passionate about.
Oh, Nikki, that's amazing. Yes, I see the work that you're doing out there. And yes, you are definitely that. You're an ambassador for the community for sure, bringing people together and promoting their services. Speaking of that, let's talk a little bit more about Spirit of Vegas. What is Spirit of Vegas? Why is it there? And what is its function?
It's kind of an accident. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine about, you know, evolving my business of 30 years, which is shoestring promotions, into something that serves my current passions. And it was, I believe, December 30th of 23 that we were having this conversation, and the concept and the idea of Spirit of Vegas was born. And really, what it is my other business, Shoestring Promotions, has been about distributing flyers for concerts and events. So that meant me going, especially in the early days before it grew, being out in the community and handing flyers out to people and getting a feel for what people were into, and algorithms before there was algorithms, if you will, what kind of people hung out at what kind of places and what kind of people were into what kinds of things and where they crossed over. And it just was a really fascinating aspect of the way my brain works, how I was able to really connect the dots between people and things and places and stuff. It was just really fun to experience and witness and be a part of. And being a part of the music industry, when I was a part of it, Vegas was still pretty small, and I got tickets to everything. I got to see all the great concerts and meet all the cool people and work behind the scenes at a lot of really fantastic events. And modern day, we talked a little bit about this in the pre-conversation, in the mid thousands, I guess you could say, um, most of the music industry was bought by corporations, and it absolutely sucked all the fun out of it. So I've continued on with this business because it's my business, it's how I made my living, but it was soul sucking. It was no longer something that brought me joy. It's just something that I did. And so when we had this conversation with this friend of mine, his name is Art, it was taking all the things that I loved about shoestring promotions and bringing it into the spiritual community, and in a way that was just really has been really meaningful for me. And there's been times over this last year where I've gone to events and I'm connecting with people and I'm introducing this person to that person, or all the events and stuff that I share, where it felt like shoestring promotions in its early days. It felt like that organic, connected excitement that I felt during those times. So it's been really exciting.
Yes, I see Spirit of Vegas growing and growing, and it is such a beautiful thing to see your passion come into fruition. Cheering people on and also helping build community, showcasing what they're doing, whether it's events or whatever it may be. Yes, everything when it comes to spirituality and holistic healing, holistic health and wellness. That's pretty incredible. And what do you see Spirit of Vegas growing into? Where do you see it in say 5 years or down the road?
Well, well, first of all, I just want to say how exciting it's been to watch it grow into what it is this year. To be able to go to places. And I really have not put my face into this project very often. It's been a very behind the scenes sort of thing until very recently. I've been starting to put my face into it. But going to places and they find out that I'm the face behind this creation, and the love and appreciation that comes through and the co-creation that's happened because of what I've been building this last year. It's really exciting. It's been really exciting. And so I think to summarize that would where am I going this next year? I'd like to just I don't even know 5 years ago, but I'm looking at this year. What from a marketing person's standpoint, which is my roots, what it's allowed me to do is see the analytics behind what people are excited about. And it's funny to me because sometimes it's very obvious why people are excited about an event. But I posted an event this week about basically stargazing with this Las Vegas Astronomical Society up at Spring Mountain Ranch, and that one is blowing up, right? And then some of these other things that I think are going to do really great, they just don't. But it's interesting to be able to just watch these analytics and see how the community is growing. One of my favorite things is to see new facilitators that are just dipping their feet in the water and watching their evolution and their growth. And being able to see what the community is thirsty for is give me a lot of information about the kinds of events that I want to put on and the kinds of events that I can help support people in growing. So this year, a couple things that I'm offering is everything I've done for the last year, for the most part, has been for free. And I always want to share events for free within certain parameters. Like, I don't want it to be alcohol centric. I really don't want it to be on the strip if at all possible. No organized religions, no divisive type events. I just really want it to be loving, beautiful community. So if your event falls under that category and it's live and in person, which is another really important part, and it's in Las Vegas, then I'm going to share your event for free. And moving into this year, some of the things that don't fall into those categories, like if someone's doing a retreat outside of Vegas, sure, I'll share that, but I'm going to have a fee on that. If you're doing an event on Zoom, again, a fee. Certain other things that I will, just because I don't want too much of those things on the page, but really the focus is about getting people together. And I would like this page to sustain itself as well. So charging a fee is also sort of a barrier to entry so that I don't have too many people advertising or sharing the same things and keeping it more event centric, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So that's one aspect of what I'm shifting into this year. Like you, I am launching a podcast because I want to begin celebrating these incredible facilitators that we have in this town. And I want to hear their stories. I want to hear, for example, someone who has trained and gone to a training for a sound bath. There's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot that goes into that person leaving their house, packing up all those beautiful sound instruments, setting them up, curating a space and making it look beautiful with the lights and the altar and all the things that go into it. There's so much that goes into the spaces that these people create, and you walk in and it just looks out beautiful, and you feel warm and fuzzy. But I want people to see what goes into it. I want people to see what kind of training people go through, what inspired these individuals to start sharing their gifts, and how their spirituality drives their passion to do these things. Because another thing about seeing all these different events is people oftentimes, more times than we like to admit, will go through all that effort, set up the beautiful space, and then no one shows up. And that's just so disappointing and demoralizing and disappointing, and makes us question, "Oh, why am I doing this?" And it's happened to me too. So I definitely know what that feels like. And then you see someone else who's got a full room, and what's different about that? The difference is that they've put in the work. They've developed their following. They've created intimate relationships with people so that they want to come and experience what they have to offer. So I think part of that is the learning tools that I can offer to people behind the scenes to help them better what they're doing, and starting to charge for it. So this can be what I do so that I can pour more back into the community. I'd love to be able to support myself by supporting the community. That would be, dream come true. So moving into podcast, another aspect of what we're going to be offering this new year is a concierge service. So you as an individual, you've got friends coming into town at the end of March and you want to know what's going on. So I can just help you find out what's going on at the end of the month. Or you can hire me to arrange your tickets and arrange your dinner and arrange your everything to go along with it. And I don't see that being a thing that a lot of local people necessarily will want, but what I'm looking to do is, as this page grows, I'm noticing that more and more people are not even from Vegas, but they come here maybe on a business meeting, or they come here with a bachelorette party, or numerous things, sporting event or whatever. Maybe the husband wants to go watch the football game, but the wife wants to go have a sound bath. And so I want to be a place where people visiting Vegas can step into the spirit of Vegas and experience the other side of what we have to offer. And I think
Wow.
that's it. There's a couple other things that I'm working on too, but I think those are my two big focus areas of focus for 2025.
Yeah, you're not busy at all. Yes. I love everything that you said. I love that you're putting out a podcast. I'm excited to tune in. I'm going to definitely subscribe. Yes, thank you for everything that you're doing. You mentioned a few things that stood out to me about events, and I wanted to ask a little bit. Well, I had a few questions about that. What is the most common thing that people are looking for? You mentioned, you're putting stuff out there that the community is thirsty for. What are they looking for?
It seems like what really is going well right now are unique events, unique takes on. I'll give you an example. There is a woman who does this incredible sound bath while you sit in a hammock.
Mhm.
And when that first came out, that just exploded, and everybody was going crazy for that. And likes on that post were 75 or 100, something like that, and she was selling out every week that she did it. And then that kind of settled down. And I remember when I started seeing sound baths in pools. Again, that just went really crazy. I'm kind of hoping that this breath work with a live musician is something that people take to, and because it's not something you get to see every day. And let me think. There's a grief circle that's coming up. It's an opportunity where people can get together and talk about what they're feeling about all that's going on in the world. We kind of touched on that in the pre-interview, and that one's going crazy. So it pleasantly surprises me all the time what things. And there was one flyer last year. There was a really cute girl sitting in a cold plunge, and that was the offering. Like, hey, come and enjoy this cold plunge. That went. So it's a mystery to me, and it excites me, and it's fun to witness, and it's always evolving and changing because people get bored. So I would say finding your own unique twist on something like the sound bath. There are more, you could go to a sound bath every day of the week, but why should someone go to yours? That's the question, right? What makes yours unique? And sometimes it doesn't even have to be unique. It goes back to developing your relationship with your people. When you have your relationship with your people, if you create something, they're going to show up because they're your people, because not just because you're going to give them something beautiful to experience, but because you check on them when you don't hear from them for a while. You wish them happy birthday. You maybe have coffee with them. So it's about really the foundation. The people who are successful, the people that light me up the most, are the ones who are also building their communities. We don't have church anymore. Church is not the prevalent way of communing with people anymore. But the elements that church offered, the social aspect, the support when someone dies, support when someone has a baby, someone loses a job, and whatever the case might be, I mean, that's what church gave us as a society, as a culture. and we don't have that anymore. So it's really up to us to build our own little microcosms of love and support and based in faith. And it won't be perfect and it might get messy and it's not always pretty, but that's real life. And that's what I crave. I crave a community that will hold me when I fall. I crave a community that will celebrate me when I win. And yeah, I kind of rambled on that, but that's really what lights me up from behind the scenes.
You mentioned a few things, but I just wanted to say that was beautiful. I felt every vibration of that frequency. I just felt it through me. I was like, yes, yes. You're talking from a space of love and purity, and it's beautiful. Thank you for that. You mentioned a few things that I want to kind of circle back on, but from your perspective, from your marketing perspective, how do you see community coming together online or on social media compared to how, like you mentioned before, people gathered in church, they had communication, they had that community. How do you see social media, or how do you see the internet just kind of evolving that or changing it or adding to?
It's interesting that you talked a little bit about this earlier about how the pandemic changed so many things. And we think about what the internet offered us as a species during that challenging time. It allowed us connection, right? It was the only connection that some people had. So here we are braving the new world, getting out and breathing air and interacting with people all over again. And what I want to see from social media is I want social media to be the community billboard at the church, where you go and you kind of read the news and you hear the announcements and you say, oh, well, this is what's going on, and then get back out into the world and build those connections and that foundation of support and love that we all crave.
Yes, that's beautifully said. Yes, completely agree with you on that, right? Having it be a billboard of sense, kind of like a notification of like, hey, this is what's going on, get out there and do something. And yeah,
Yes.
it changed everything. Everyone was indoors. A lot of businesses unfortunately went down. They had to kind of do other things to support themselves. A lot of people lost a lot of things, and a piece of themselves got lost during that time. And what I kind of see and perceive of the world now is the rebuilding of that. And the really cool thing is that, people are rebuilding to their vision, and they're not no longer following a system or a program. They're creating that for themselves, and they're sharing that with community and bringing people together. That's what I see in the world. And I am so happy to know you. I'm so grateful that you're doing what you're doing, because it is something that's also very necessary. So thank you. You mentioned a musician and breath work. Yeah, can you speak a little bit about that? Because I heard your excitement with that breath work with the musician.
Well, again, I like many people, I thrive on novelty. This gentleman his name is Paul Summers, and I met him 30 years ago. He was a hardcore punk rock musician in Las Vegas, and he moved away, and I lost track of him, and I hadn't spoken to him in years. And he reconnected with me recently, and he'd gone off and done his musician thing and got hooked on drugs and had a baby and lost his baby and uh, got sober and fought to have his child back and raise this child and found his way to spirituality from such contrast, such extremes, right? Which it is so many times. And so now he's using his musicianship, and he'd learned about this 528 healing frequency. And so he started working with his music and that frequency to create these songscapes, which is just an elevated, or the evolved version of a sound bath. It's not crystal bowls, but it's still healing frequencies. And so this is what he's been playing with me. And we've been talking about this for close to a year, about him coming out here and us collaborating with us. And we finally put it together. And the whole process of collaborating with him has been so much fun, and finding the venue and talking through how we're going to do this together. And I'm as excited as I am curious about it. So definitely looking forward to sharing that with the world.
Yeah, sounds fun. It sounds very unique, right? I'm
Yes.
excited to check it out. So let's talk a little bit more about, I'm very to learn more about you and your spiritual journey.
You know, I wasn't raised in a religious household. I had half of my family that was Mormon and half my family that was Catholic, and I was taken to church and involved in these different activities, but it wasn't ever anything that resonated with me, and it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So as I got older, I started seeking, got into yoga and studied, got into the Vedic studies and what's that all about? And it really resonated with me a lot. During the Middle East conflicts, I wanted to understand why they were fighting over religion and what was at the root of that. So I studied those various religions and why they were fighting over it. And so learned a little bit more. I think the Kabbalah, I got curious about that when Madonna was studying that because that was my era. And then my grandmother, my maternal grandmother passed away. My mother started seeking and she found Louise Hayes. And shortly after my grandmother died, my mom sent me a cassette tape of Louise Hayes. It really resonated with me. It was it the You Can Heal Your Life. Are you familiar?
Yes, yes,
It's
Louise.
so great. And she's got that that grid in the back that tells you if you've got this illness, this is maybe what you get to focus on and heal
Mhm.
yourself. And that that really resonated with me. And it was a different mindset than what my mother had come from and what she raised me in. And so it started to open up my mind to other possibilities of, it wasn't that I didn't believe in God. I just hadn't found a way to connect with Source in a way that resonated with me. But that started sending me in that right direction. So I dabbled in some other self help and spiritual gurus at the time, but I was pretty busy with my work and didn't really go too far with it at that point. But I did eventually get deeply into yoga, and I went through a teacher training and learned about Yogananda Brahmananda and his journey through India and all the amazing things that he experienced when he was learning about his own faith. And I, little bit earlier than that, I had this boyfriend who was a very short-term boyfriend, but he was taking karate classes. And so I did what you do when you're dating somebody, you try the things they try, and I ended up loving karate. And we broke up and he quit, and I kept going. And I went nearly 5 years before I was ready to take my black belt test. And this school at the time they were offering a trip to China, which is, they say Shaolin Temple is the birthplace of most of the Asian martial arts. So 1500-year history. And at this point, I was still in the music industry, a lot in my ego. And it was very ego driven passion to go. And so I borrowed money, saved money, and made this trip happen. And it was fantastic. It was fascinating because we went into China after it had only been open to the world for about 10 years. And they weren't really accustomed. There were areas we went to that they were not accustomed to seeing people of white skin or of non-Chinese skin. And so we flew into Hong Kong, which was amazing, and I felt something stir in me at that point. And then we flew from there into the Shaolin Temple, and there was 300 of us, and apparently this was a really big deal to have 300 non-Asian people in buses, multiple buses, traveling around China. We had media following us, and we had lots of people following us around, just watching us. And it was such a curiosity to everybody. And so we went to the temple and we gave a gift to the temple. And then we had our very best martial artists do, it was like a dance off kind of thing, where we had our best martial artists did their performances, and then the Shaolin monks did theirs, and, made us look like toddlers. It was such an incredible experience. And to make it even more fantastic, it was pouring down rain.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was really something to witness. Anyway, after that we had some free time, and I'd been hearing about this cemetery at this Shaolin temple. Again, 1500-year-old cemetery with these pagodas. You know what a pagoda is? Those sort of little pyramid looking, not pyramid, but like, yeah, kind of shaped like that. And pagodas aren't always mausoleums, but all the pagodas in the the Shaolin cemetery are. And so each one of these pagodas has the ashes of either an abbot or a kung fu master, or if they had really big battles and a lot of them died in one battle, they would bring them in and put them all in one of these mausoleums. So altogether, I think there's 200 something of them that date back to 495. So I wanted to see this. I was excited about it. So I walked over there, and almost immediately I was overcome with this intense emotion that I didn't really understand. And it's again still pouring down rain. Next thing you know, I'm bawling. I'm on my knees in this cemetery crying, trying to figure out what the heck's going on with me, you know? And so it was deeply moving. It's still hard for me to explain it and put it to words what I experienced in that cemetery, but I went home. I think we went to Beijing from there, went home. I took my black belt test, was incredible. Went home to my karate school, collected my black belt, and said goodbye because I'd heard that there was a Shaolin monk in town. And so I started training with him. And my thought was, okay, this guy's going to help me figure out what the heck happened to me in this temple. And he didn't speak English, so he was no help to me at all. So I started studying Chinese, and the next year I went back to China by myself with one semester of Chinese and a little handheld dictionary, and went back to the temple and felt that feeling again. It felt, but it was less emotional. It was more, I could feel into it more. It's like, oh, this is familiar. This feels familiar. And so I was able to sit and meditate in there, and still didn't really fully understand it. But I kept going back. I kept studying Chinese, kept going back year after year, going back to the temple, meditating in this cemetery. And I think it was about 3 or 4 years into it, what I realized was that I had been buried in that cemetery. I had lived in that space before. The reason why I had so much emotion around it is because this was my home. And then I visited this other temple. It's about 2 hours away from it, and had a similar feeling there, but not as intense. So it seems like this region at one point in time was my home. And I worked with this healer, and he said that I was buried in that cemetery 12 times, which, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not, but I definitely feel like I had a lifetime there. And it really opened me up to deeper practice in my Shaolin Kung Fu. And what's beautiful about Shaolin Kung Fu, there's three elements to it. So you've got the martial arts element, the Wu, and then the medicine aspect of it. So traditional Chinese medicine is a part of Shaolin Kung Fu, and so you would study the herbs and the plants and how that's Yi is the medicine, and then Chen is Buddhism. And so the particular sect of Buddhism that's studied there is called Zen Buddhism, which we know of from Japan. It came to us through Japan, but it originated in this temple where and this is so interesting, an Indian prince wandered through China, ended up at this temple, and meditated in the mountains for 9 years, and came up with this system of Shaolin Kung Fu, which is actually based in yoga. And I recognized that really early on before I ever knew. So based in yoga. And he combined the three principles, the religious principles or philosophical principle of China, Zen Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. So that those three philosophies became Zen Buddhism. And then it went to Japan, and it got the Japanese stamp of their culture in there, and then it came to us in the West. So Wu Yi Chen is like the essence of Shaolin Kung Fu. And so over the 10 years that I went and visited China, I would go back year after year. And sometimes I'd stay for a month. The longest time I ever stayed was a year. But I deepened my understanding of the language and the culture and the Shaolin practice, and just really started to embody the Shaolin concepts and philosophy. And so that became the foundation of my spiritual practice and my entry point, if you will. And then from there, deepening through the Vedic practices as well, fascinating. And more recently, delving into work with plant medicine, psilocybin, of course, but more specifically ayahuasca. It's been almost a 10-year journey working with that to really, really deepen my understanding of myself and how I move in the world and my relationship with Source. And how all of this that I've experienced, everything I've done up to this point, is all about being whole so I can be of service. And there you go.
Beautiful. What a story. Thank you for taking us on that journey. Wow. Yes. Yeah, you mentioned a lot of things in there. Your plant medicine journey, and also working with psilocybin and ayahuasca. Are you working with others in integrative work?
I do. I don't find myself working with those plant medicines very often anymore because I feel like I've done a lot of the work that it called me to do. Every once in a while, I'll be called to, and usually it has to do with like a death in the family. I'm like, oh, okay, it helps me process the trauma. It helps me process, specifically, my stepfather was probably the most recent one where I sat for myself and I sat in a deep journey to it helped me remember the reasons I hated him from my childhood so that I could release those things and love him in his death and love who he became and love who he was to me as a stepfather, even though, a lot of trauma in his family, abuse and alcoholism in his family. And so he really wasn't the greatest stepfather, but he was a provider. And he helped us live a comfortable life. And he made us really awful dinner every night. And he loved my mom up until the day she died. So it was the work with ayahuasca that night that I'm sure I would have come to that anyway, but it was able to shed all of the barriers to my understanding of that. And so it was very accelerated. My acceptance, my forgiveness, that whole process happened in a matter of months as opposed to years. And now my work with that medicine is mostly in service. So I'll be a guardian in that space. And psychedelic integration is with all the plant medicines is really something I'm passionate about because I didn't have that when I got into this realm. And I had so many questions. And I think that if I had had somebody that could help me understand what I was going through, that I would have accelerated more quickly in my journey. Not to say that it always has to be fast, but it would have been nice to have had the support. And so when I stepped into that role of supporting people in their integration, not only was I helping people understand their own journeys, but it always helps me understand mine and humanity in general.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's very powerful. And for anyone out there that's curious about that kind of a journey with plant medicine or with, psilocybin, uh, there's information and practitioners and facilitators out there that are more than to share that experience and that wisdom.
For
And
sure.
thank you for doing that.
And do your own research on those people before you move forward.
That part right there. That part, yes. Please research everything, everything. Even if we think we know something, just research it. Just
Mhm.
because. We don't we know what we don't know. We don't know what we know.
I
That-
know.
yes. Um, you are a parent. And
Yes.
yeah, tell us how, raising a child is and incorporating your newfound spirituality and also running a business. What does a day in the life of Nikki look like?
Well, having a child was not in my trajectory. It's not something I ever thought was going to happen in my life. And I'll backtrack a little bit. When I was living at the Shaolin Temple, I invested in a youth hostel, and most of what I did was do the tourism aspect of it. So I would take the different guests, and we would go on exploring the village outside Shaolin Temple. And one of my guests, he's from Sweden, I think, Switzerland, one of those. Excuse me. Anyway, I took him up to this temple, and this is a little temple that I was absolutely in love with. It was one of those that you see in the movies where it's a platform, and then you have to climb a bunch of stairs, and there's a platform, climb a bunch of stairs. Just getting halfway through it is exhausting, right? So I think about 4 or 5 layers up, there was this little room, and I found this sweet older monk who sat in this room and he painted, and just really sweet paintings, not necessarily something you'd find in the museum, but just beautiful, nice. Really, I liked his color palette. And I just liked him. He had this toothless smile and just super warm. And Chinese people tend to be more reserved, but he would hug me, which was really unusual. And so I would go and visit him, and I took this gentleman up to see him one day, and I didn't realize this, but he was a fortune teller. And so this guest of mine sits down, and the monk hands him this painting and starts telling him his fortune. And by this time my Chinese was pretty decent, so I'm interpreting for him and something about his business and what he's planning to do and some steps that he could take and things like this. And basically, he was waiting for an exchange. The man gave him some money for the painting and the advice, and then he turns to me and he hands me a painting of Kuan Yin. You know who Kuan Yin is?
Yes.
She's like the goddess of mercy in Buddhism and Hinduism, I believe. And he hands this to me and he says, "And you, my dear, have the heart of Kuan Yin." And he said a bunch of things to me, and I don't remember what they are, because at one point he says, "When you have your child, blah blah blah." Tuned it all out because I was not having a kid. Not happening. So sure enough, I take the painting, hug him, go on my way. I go home to America. The day I get home, I got pregnant and had forgotten about this conversation so much that I had a conversation with that guest, and he had to remind me of that conversation. And then it all came back to me. So 2 years later, I take my little girl to China to meet her grandparents, and we went to see this monk, and we walked in, and he was so happy. He knew. He opened his arms, and she went right to him. Until she was 3.5 years old, she wouldn't go to anybody. She went right to him and was happy. And
Mm.
he says, "Okay, now you make sure she always has a paintbrush." I said, "Okay, I will listen to you this time." But yeah, parenting has been an unexpected journey. And a lot of the reasons why I didn't want to become a parent is because my childhood was challenging. My mother suffered from mental health, and come to find out she had ADHD. I didn't know that until very recently, because I recently realized that I have it too. And I didn't want to put a child through the challenges that I'd been through. I recognized that I had some mental health issues and didn't realize it was ADHD until literally last year. And I just didn't want to put a child through that. And so here I am with this child, and I decided to do things differently. Because I was self-employed, I was able to stay home with her and be a mom. I homeschooled her most of her life up until sixth grade. I have not worked a lot over the last couple of years. I'm semi-retired, and it's allowed me to be able to be a mom to her. She thinks we're poor because we don't have tons of money to do all the things. Like, no, 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 we're very rich because I get to be home with you every day, and we get to do our life this way. Um, and last year, she decided she wanted to go to public school. And here's this little girl that's grown up as an entrepreneur. She can sell anything to anybody. I opened a store called Chloe's Fairy Cottage, named after my daughter, and we sold crystals and trinkets and herbs and essential oils and all these things. And that's what she grew up in, is knowing this kind of lifestyle, this entrepreneurial lifestyle. She helped me sell, she helped me make things and set things up. She grew up around women's circles and spiritual events and all of this. And now here I'm taking this precious, innocent child and thrusting her into the public school. And I was horrified. She goes to the same junior high school that I went to. And when I went to that school, it was predominantly white Mormon school. And now it's, I think, it's 4% white. And what a beautiful, culturally diverse environment for her to come out into the world into. And all the things junior high school, and the challenges that it's presented for me to hold the space of spirituality, of acceptance, of love, tolerance, all the things that I want to teach her as she steps into the junior high school environment and begins her individuation process, right? And rejects the things that I've been teaching her whole life. So currently I feel like I'm in junior high school, and I'm learning all these things along with her all over again, but through these different filters, through the filters of presence and acceptance and tolerance and love. And she's going into that environment. It's not that. So it's so much in conflict of of the individuation process and experiencing life out there, and then coming home to mom who's talks something very different than the rest of the world, and she's, mom, why can't you be like everybody else's mom? Because I'm not, and I do things differently, yes. And so last year was challenging because she's seeing this brave new world through her own eyes, and she comes home to me, who I make her lunch every day, and we cook from scratch, and we eat stuff from Trader Joe's and Sprouts and organic, and the whole thing. And then she goes to school, and everything they're offering is processed and basically fast food, and it tastes delicious, and Takis and chips and all the things, and and it's like a spiritual battle in a way, to have created the world that I want for myself and I want for my child. And then she goes into the world and she gets to make her own choices. And so last year was really challenging. This year's different. This year I think she's stepping more into herself and is making her own choices based on what she's figuring out. And I remember at one point last year she tells me, stop projecting your experience of junior high school on me. This is my 11-year-old telling me this, and I think it's fantastic that she can speak to me that way and know her own truth. And so without overtly forcing spirituality on her, just allowing her to find her way and be supportive and loving. And parenting's hard and beautiful. And something else that's really awesome about parenting is it's a real life opportunity in real time for me to work through my own childhood traumas, because she stirs all that up in me, just by being who she is and the age that she is. And the fact that I allow her to be who she is triggering to me, because that's not how I was raised. And so she's a cheerleader and she's a straight A student, and the principal has her pegged to be the valedictorian of her junior high school next year. She's an actress, and that's a whole nother world to navigate and keep her grounded and whole in that environment. She's at the point right now where she's rejecting everything that I do and thinks it's dumb. It sucks, but I know it's temporary and we'll get back to it. And we have a really close relationship, even though it's not always easy. There you go. There's parenting for me.
There's parenting. Yes, thank you so much for sharing that and for inviting us into a glimpse of what it is to be an entrepreneur, and also finding your own spirituality and also raising a child. What a journey, right?
It really is. And it's interesting you say that about the entrepreneurship, because I have sacrificed a lot of that for the last 12 years, but now she doesn't want or need me like she did. So I'm starting to have more freedom to do the things that light me up, like Spirit of Vegas. And I've gotten into a couple other things lately too. I've started doing catering for plant medicine retreats and other retreats too, but mostly plant medicine retreats. I didn't know I was a caterer. I just found this out last year. So that's been a really fun journey, and it's actually something I'm starting to once or twice a month now. And yeah, who knew?
That's really
I
fun.
love
What
that.
kind of food are you catering?
Well, a lot of times with the plant medicines, the diets are really specific, and then I have my own flair on, I want to eat organic food and I want to eat healthy food and I want it all to be fresh and delicious and presented beautifully. And so that's what I bring to the table, and apparently people like it. So I guess I'll keep doing that for a while.
Oh, that's amazing. Very, very excited to try your food one of these days. One of these
I would
days.
love to share
Yes.
that with you.
Yes. Oh wow. Are you creating a business around that out of the catering?
I don't think so. I think it's just sort of a niche thing that I'm doing on the side because I love it, and it's also exhausting. So at one point I don't know how long I'll be doing that, but it's something fun for now. And the people, I mean, most of what I do these days is fueled by the people, the connections, the friendships, my curiosity for how people do what they do and be who they be. That's just magic to me. I don't think I can ever get bored with that.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, going back to Spirit of Vegas. So say I'm a business and I meet a certain criteria. I'm throwing an event. How do I get in contact with you? How do I start the process to say, hey, Nikki, I need a little support here. I'm looking to get my stuff out there. What advice do you have for them if they want to reach out to you and get connected to promote an event?
Uh, for the time being, the easiest way is just to message me through Spirit of Vegas on Instagram. Website is forthcoming. A dedicated email is forthcoming, but for now, that's the best way.
Oh,
And
that's
then
amazing.
if you just want, and I do that for free. Like I said, I share events for free. If you want multiple posts, I have a menu for that, and I also do consulting too. So if people need marketing help or flyer design or things like that, I can help with that too as a consultant. Part of my old Shoestring promotions realm coming through.
That's great. Say someone wants to start their own business in the spiritual community, holistic community. What advice would you give them?
I would say take it slow. Really get in touch with your why and allow the why to be what guides you. And that's a really vulnerable thing to do because some people, and this is coming from my music background, where most of the people that I worked with in the music industry were presenting from their ego, and not all, but most. And we see where that ends up. If your ego is always going to be involved. It's one of our little friends that are with us until we die, right? But if you can find that place in you that's in service to source, in service to community, in service to something larger, more expansive than your ego, then I find from my personal experience and from what I witnessed is that it comes easy. When it comes easy, you're on the right track. If it's a grind, if it's difficult, then maybe it's time to sit down and be quiet and still and re-examine your why. Because I have to say, Spirit of Vegas has come easier to me than anything I've ever done in my life. And now the support of the universe is coming through as I move forward with it. That's the spiritual answer.
Well, that's a wonderful answer. That's great advice for anyone who wants to start their process and finding out what it is that they want to do, especially in a community that is so centered in more service for others.
And then the nuts and bolts, the doing and be versus the being part of it. When you start getting into community, building community, you find out, oh, hey, you build websites. Oh, hey, you do flyer design. Oh, hey, whatever, then that's when you lean on your community too to help you build what you're building so that there's a different sort of synergy that happens that way.
Yes, absolutely, 1%. Being there for each other, being a resource for each other, being that helping hand or that connector, right? That bridge to one person to another person who has a specific service that can assist in some way. And
Absolutely.
it's part of the collaboration and co-creation that we're all experiencing, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
What is your daily routine look like? What do you do for self-care?
Meditation is huge for me. My day starts with meditation and breath work. And hopefully I get to some other things too lately. I like to read. I like to read about things that can help make me a better person, a better business owner, a better mother, a better human, a better friend. Those types of books really light me up. And journaling is also a part of that. It's not a trifecta, my four things: meditation, breath work, journaling, reading. This year I've been doing it outdoors. So I sit under my tree and I put my bare feet in the ground as I do all of that. And it's been really beautiful, powerful. Yeah, but those four things are the foundation. And when I do those four things, I find that everything comes easier to me through the day because I make my commitment to myself and source first thing. And yeah, it serves me really well. And when I get off that track, it shows for sure. Physically, I like to move my body every day. I either go for a walk or I lift weights or do kung fu or yoga. Sometimes dancing. I love ecstatic dance once a month. It's sort of that's a rush. And connecting with friends is definitely a huge part of it. At least one friend a day that I have some sort of intimate connection with. Sometimes it's more. but that part's so vital to me. And after that, it's just whatever the day holds for me. If it's preparing things for Spirit of Vegas, that's actually part of my routine daily too, is finding those events and posting them. It makes it easier if you send them to me.
Yeah, you hear that, everyone? Send them to Nikki. She wants all
Yes,
your
please.
events, all of them. Wow, yes. Well, great advice there, and thank you for that.
What is yours? Can I ask you yours? What is your daily routine?
My what I
Daily
call my
practice?
non-negotiable
Yes.
is running. I love to
Oh,
run
nice.
in the morning time when the sun just comes out. It just starts peeking out, and I'm like, all right, it's time to go outside and just run, just energize my system, move my body. I've been asleep for, that 8 hour period. So it's now time to get up and wake it up and integrate it more into what I'm doing here in this reality. And I love to just listen to just relaxing music. I don't really listen to like loud music or fast music, just relaxing music and just run around my neighborhood wherever it takes me. And I get to see all the birds and I go out and I do Reiki on bees where I see any bees. I do Reiki on them and I send them love. I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I practice a lot of gratitude and
Are you familiar with the neuroscience around running first thing in the morning? Like within 20 minutes of waking up, when you get the sun, especially when it's right up off the horizon, if you indirectly look at it and get the red rays of the early morning, it helps synchronize your clock to where you sleep better and you actually get nourishment and balancing through having the sun hit your eyes. So when you're running, don't look right at it, but like kind of look to the side so you get that right in there.
I love to, stare at the sun and sun gaze. I love sun gazing.
Yes.
I send Reiki to the sun. I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm sending you this love. And, I start channeling this energy and I send it to the sun.
Fantastic.
And it's a powerful thing. I love to do it on a daily basis. I need my body in movement somehow, some way. Stretching is very important to me. Coffee. I love coffee. Coffee. I know people say it's like, oh, coffee's not good for you. I'm like, you know what? My body loves it. My mind loves it. It's not something it's hooked on, but it's something that really just it feels good. But yes,
Can
I
I
love
share
my
some
coffee.
perspective on coffee?
I'm sorry. Oh, please. Yes, yes. I can't
Okay,
wait to hear this.
so what makes coffee bad for us is excessiveness, right? If you do more than 3 cups a day,
No.
and then all the extra stuff that people put in it, sugar and sugar and sugar and milk and all the things, right? So if you drink black coffee and it's a medium to light roast,
Yes.
preferably something without mold and organic, then it's high in polyphenols and it has an element that helps to extend your telomeres. Are you familiar with telomeres?
Yes, I am.
Telomeres helps determine how long you're going to live. Coffee, within reason, is actually a superfood.
Probably why I don't look my age.
I was going to say, your routine has got you looking vibrant,
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, I love my coffee. I like to experiment with my coffee and I add, cayenne pepper to it, add powders, mushroom powders, even
Uh-huh.
psilocybin at times, and just different things. Yeah, coffee is part of my self-care routine as well. The stretching aspect, of course, getting back into your body early in the morning is really important to me, and running gratitude towards all living beings. When I'm running down the street, I'm high-fiving all the trees. I'm like, high five. And I high five their leaves. Really fun. Yeah, so that's my self-care routine. I do other things, but when it comes to what I do when I first wake up, it's very important to me to get that sun, to get that new perspective, and with that new energy that I've accumulated in myself, I'm like, all right, now what are you gonna do with it? What are you going to create with it? And that's how I lead my day going forward.
It's really inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
I love your jubilance about your your process. It's really inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I know you mentioned a few things that you like to do. You like to read books. What kind of books are you reading right now?
The book that blew my mind last year was The Yugas. Are you
Hmm.
familiar? From the Vedic
Please share.
traditions.
Please share.
So the theory is that the planet goes through 24,000 year cycles, and the closest we are to the galactic center, the more spiritually connected we are, and the furthest we are, the darker we are. And so, depending on who you ask, according to this book, we're 300 years out of the Kali Yuga. I'm sure most of us have heard of the Kali Yuga, which is like the darkest point. And to other scholars believe that we're coming out of it now, or we're in it, about to come out of it. So it just depends on who you ask. But I tend to like the idea that we're out of it, because the next era is the Dwarpa Yuga, which is all about energy. And so you think Tesla, Einstein, all of these, Elon Musk, even regardless of what you think of him, the creation that's happening and the speed of creation is exponential and hard to ignore. So from what from what I understand, the closer we go back towards the galactic center, is we will stop needing to write things. We will eventually stop needing to speak, because we'll just telepathically be able to communicate. And so we've actually gone through thousands of years of these cycles. And so I don't know if you I'm really going to geek out on you here. I don't know if you've watched the Ancient Apocalypse series about
Ancient Apocalypse one, no. Ancient Aliens, yes.
the Ancient Apocalypse goes through the Younger Dryas period, which is the Great Flood. That every ancient culture on the planet has a flood myth or a flood story. So what it's suggesting is that we as human beings have existed longer than the time frame that religion and science tells us we have, and they've got these incredible structures. Göbekli Tepe that's in Turkey. There's one in Indonesia. I can't remember what it's called, but it's really cool looking. There's several in Mexico, several in the Amazon. We even have one in America. I think it's in New Mexico, that predate all these, the 6,000 years or whatever that we're supposed to have been around here. And they coincide with the Younger Dryas period. So 8, 10, 14,000 year old cultures that built these ancient structures. So what the yugas suggest is that we've gone through these cycles multiple times. So of course there would be other incarnations of our species in various forms of enlightenment, I suppose. I would say that the closer we go to the galactic center, the more enlightened we become. We don't need words. We don't need food even. Communication is no longer with the word, and we live longer and we live healthier. And so reading that book really turned things around for me. For one thing, it made me feel very insignificant in the big picture, and everything all at once. To know that I am a part of that. That's a part of me. And it just gave me a lot of peace, especially right now, with as chaotic as things can be around us right now. Just knowing that ultimately it doesn't matter. We are where we are, and we do what we do, and we be who we be. And I just found a lot of peace in that. What am I reading right now? It's the one that got in my book. It was suggested by a friend. It's called The Art of Gathering.
Mm.
And it's pretty awesome if you are into creating events, putting together events. She's got some really cool concepts about getting people to connect, and why you bring people together, and being intentional. If you're going to bring people together, be intentional about it. Why? What are you trying to get out of it? Do you want them to get to know each other? Is it a couples gathering? What is it all about? And so the intentionality of gathering it's a really great book.
Wow,
So yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna look
kind of
into that.
yeah, I think you'd enjoy it. So that's the kind of stuff that I read. I don't got so many. I've got internal family systems that I read several at the same time too. Do you do that?
I read several at a time too, and at times I go through my little library and I'm like, all right, what's calling out to me? And then
Yes.
I just grab a book, whatever calls out to me, I open it up and I'm like, what's my message? And it's
Mm,
right there and then, and I'm like, all right, understood.
got it.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, and to kind of touch a little bit about what you said too, there is a lot going on in the world right now, and a lot of people are I kind of feel they're just a little bit of everywhere with, and they
Mm.
don't know which way to turn with all these things happening. It seems like all at once. What are your perspectives on what's going on right now? If you don't mind me asking.
A lot of it is political rhetoric. A lot of it is spin. I like to look at the most inflammatory story I can find and then seek out as many perspectives on it as possible. And what I'm finding over and over and over again, it doesn't matter which political spectrum you're on, it just seems that people are the sort of, how do I put this? The powers to be, whoever, wherever they're coming from, just want us scared. They want us riled up. They want us fighting each other because when we're in that state of being, we're easier to control and manipulate. So my practice is definitely in Eastern philosophy, and I call it self mastery and being aware and in relationship with my feelings and emotions and presence. Presence is probably the biggest tool that I have, right? So all of this that's going on around me, most of it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me or my dog or my cats or my chickens or my daughter. So I keep myself whole and centered. And that way, when I go out into the world and I'm bombarded by all of this information, I can sort through it and make sense of it and figure out what affects me, what doesn't affect me, who can I help, what's out of my control. And most of it's out of my control. So I focus on what's within my sphere of control. And that's where my power is. Within my sphere of control is my place of power. And I find that when I get disheveled by what's going on outside of me, it's because I lose that. I lose the focus of what I can and cannot control. The magic is in the presence. The magic is in what's happening right here, right in this moment. It's just you and me, dude.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on out there, but when I get out there, I'll deal with that.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people are afraid right now. I know a lot of people are being affected by other people's choices and actions. And in the midst of that, in the midst of the worst of times, the very center of it all, you always have the choice of how you're going to react. And that's where your true power is. That's where your presence is. To me, that's where spirituality lies for me, is in the present moment of what I can influence. Otherwise, I'm in fear, I'm in anxiety, or in anticipation. And none of those places are my personal power. So help where you can help and take good care of you and your family. That way you move through the world as a whole being. And imagine if everybody did that work. That's what I hope for. And that's a lot of the reason why I do what I do.
Well, thank you, Nikki. Thank you so much for sharing that. Very inspirational. I have to say that I am very moved by our conversation. Very, very happy to know you as a soul, and thank you so much for taking the time on your busy schedule to be here and talking to me and also sharing your story to the world. So thank you so much for that. I did want to ask two questions. Hypothetical scenario. Money is not an issue. What would you do?
I'd love to go back to China. I'd love to go to Egypt. I'd love to go to the Amazon. I'd love to go to random small places that no one has ever heard of. I love exploring other cultures. And I love the word analytics just because that's like such a buzzword right now, but the analytics of what makes people click and what makes communities work and what makes people happy. Yeah, I would like a lot more of that.
And your younger self is watching this interview right now. What would you say to the younger you?
Okay, so if my younger self looking at me right now would think I was so boring. My younger self worked in the music business and traveled and did all these crazy things, and I'm mostly just at home taking care of my kid these days. And so what would I tell her? most of what matters to you now won't matter later.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nikki, for sharing that. And Nikki, where can we find your information? Where can we get in contact with you? I have an event, or I just want to reach out to you because I want to collaborate with you. Where do I go to find that information?
Right now, Spirit of Vegas on Instagram. There is a Spirit of Vegas TikTok that's building and growing. Facebook has the Spirit of Vegas, and I don't know if I've rebranded my YouTube channel, but that'll be happening with the next couple weeks. Also, will be Spirit of Vegas.
That's fantastic. I'll make sure to put all the links below so people can reach out and contact you for any events. Nikki, thank you
Thank you.
again for being here. Very excited to share this with everyone, and thank you for everyone watching.
I appreciate you too. Thank you.
Thank you.